Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Induction Noise, brought to you by Master Panel Beaters. Today's episode is the last part of episode 1, which is all about overrated and underrated cars. If you haven't listened to the other 3 parts in this episode, please go and do it, because there are some running jokes that make their way through the whole thing. And today we're actually going through my list of cars that I think are slightly overhyped, cars that I think probably don't get the credit they deserve. And of course there's a lot of laughs along the way and, 4 idiots talking about cars. Well, I say 4, but actually on the day that we were really recording this episode, Neil had to leave early, unfortunately. So he wasn't around to defend his beloved Nissan GTR when I possibly called it a steaming pile of horse manure. So we have that to look forward to. Also, something else to look forward to, since today is the last part of this 4-part episode, as of next week, you're getting brand new stuff from us. New topics, new interesting stuff that we're discussing, and more interesting jokes, things to laugh at, and mostly for idiots talking about cars. That's kind of what we do around here. So, without further ado, let's get to my list. Probably the one that everyone is going to say is my most obvious choice for underrated cars is the Jag XK. And...
is that the poor man's Aston Martin?
Yeah, essentially. But the thing that no Aston Martin owner will admit to you, the XK drives better than the Aston does. It's lighter and more nimble than the DB9. And if you go for the later 5-litre supercharged XKR, it's also quicker than the DB9. So for half the money of a DB9, you can have the XKR, which is actually technically a much better, nicer car.
And compared to a Vantage, how does it stack up? Because I've never driven a XKR. I've only driven the F-Type. And what's the XKR's worth or going right now?
So a decent low mileage XKR, you're looking at about 350 to 400 grand for the 4.2. Okay. And the 5 liters, you're going to be looking at 5 to 600 for a good one.
Isn't an F-Type then a better buy at the XKR?
No, because the F-Type is a different car. I mean, the F-Type
is smaller and less upmarket car as well. Right?
The F-Type is much smaller, and I must be honest, unless you're getting the V8 F-Type, the ones I've driven have just left me a little bit cold.
Okay.
I don't know if it's because I was expecting more from it than what I got, but it doesn't give me that fizz, But the XKR, and even the standard XK without the supercharger, they're just absolutely brilliant cars. And they're cheap as chips for what you get. You get a car that is any day as good looking as an Aston Martin. Okay, granted, it doesn't have the badge appeal, and the Aston's got some nice detailing on it and whatever. But it's not a bad looking car.
I think it's good bang for buck, I guess.
Have you driven one?
I have not driven one.
You need to come drive one.
But
because
I have seen an Aston.
It's insane.
And looks-wise, for me, I'm an Italian car guy, but an Aston that's a good-looking car. Design-wise.
The Aston is beautiful, and I love the Astons. And if I was cross-shopping a V8 Vantage against an F-Type, I'd buy the V8 Vantage.
But those slightly different classes, though. But yeah, on value.
But if I was going to look at DB9 versus XKR, I'd be very, very tempted by the DB9 because that V12 is fantastic. But the XKR is better, and it's better value, and it's going to cost me less to run it.
Look,
more usable, I guess.
It's more usable.
In a coupe form, it's a beautiful car for me. I'm not that convinced on the convertible looks of it. I feel like the sloping rear end ties it in together.
Look, for me, I like convertibles, so I'd have a convertible.
I've got two. I also love convertibles, but I just the with the hardtop, it almost makes it look a bit more aggressive than the convertible for me.
Yeah, I think I'll have to agree with that. It
Yeah,
looks a
but
bit
you,
more-
you are very biased towards hardtops. You don't like soft tops at all.
No, I don't. I don't
Well,
see the
that's-
point. But
That's because you're old and boring.
I would say there's no point on it. Because then you
No,
can
honestly-
hear
no,
the-
for me,
Look,
there's no point because I'll be
I
too lazy to
love-
put the roof down.
It's
a
button, dude.
It's one button.
It's one extra thing to do.
even my even
It
my
distracts me from
90s.
driving. I'm old. And shit.
It's one button.
It's not a 4C Spider where you have to roll it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's but
You're
yeah,
not
I
pitching
love
a
the
tent.
XKRs. I love the XKs in general, and I think, like you said, bang for buck, there's very little that can beat it.
Yeah.
And it's not just that it's a lot of car for the money. It's just a lot of car, full stop.
Yeah.
It genuinely is that good. And it's a complete mindfuck because you don't expect it to be that good. You expect it to be an old man's Jag, you know, but it's not. It's a proper weapon, that thing.
I must say they've aged well.
Yeah,
Yes.
They look
that as well.
almost better now. There was a stage when I was like, I don't like the now. That actually, that's a good-looking car.
And I was, I think I've told the story or to some of you guys, but in Mexico, we had a run and there was a M6 V10 in front and the XKR was chasing him. And at some miles an hour on the Autobahn,
The Mexican Autobahn.
the Mexican Autobahn, I believe it was around
El Autobano.
270 k's an hour ish, and the BM was sitting on limiter, and I think the Jag was delimited, and the Jag is the only one that came out of that run alive, because promptly after they hit the top speed, the BMW spectacular burst a light and put a big
Much fire.
asshole in the in the motor.
Yeah, that'll happen with some Beamers. I'll admit that.
So credit to the Jag, eh?
They probably missed the preventive maintenance.
Oh yes,
the
of course.
the preventative maintenance of the consumable bearings.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, but like I said, the XKR for me, I think it's probably one of the car world's best kept secrets because nobody talks about them. Nobody really rates them as a fantastic sports car, but they really are. They are that good.
They XKR.
They XKR. I'm telling you. But yeah, they're very good. Right, guys, I'm sorry to interrupt proceedings, but I do just have to take a quick second to thank our incredible sponsors, Master Panel Beaters in Montague Gardens. Stephen and his team stepped up right from the very beginning, and they've sponsored this entire season of Induction Noise. Without those guys, we wouldn't have a show. I also wanted to mention again that I've taken my own cars to these guys, and I actually do use their services. My Jaguar, my daily driver, is actually going to them fairly soon for some work as well. I've taken cars from work to them for some minor repairs, paint touch-ups, and stone chip repairs on front bumpers and that kind of thing. And the great thing is when the car comes back, you cannot tell that the car has been worked on. And I mean, I work in the car business, so I know what to look for to see whether a car's had work done. And on the cars that Steven's worked on, you can't tell. They are just that good. And what makes it more impressive is that one of the last recent cars that I've had with them is a jet black Italian exotic. And anyone who's ever painted a car will tell you that black is probably the hardest color to deal with because it will show every single tiniest little imperfection very, very clearly. And that car came back to us. You cannot tell that anything's ever been done to it. It is just absolutely immaculate. So if you need anything done to your car, whether it's a giant smash front end or rear end or sideways into a tree, or just a tiny ding or a scratch or a stone chip bumper that needs fixing, Stephen and his team at Master Panel Beaters are the guys to sort you out. Check them out. Their details will be on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page, as well as our website. And of course, Stephen and his team also have their own Facebook page that you can check out and contact them directly. Master Panel Beaters, Montague Gardens, thank you very much. Let's get on with my list. The next thing on my list is kind of at odds with one of the ones on your list, because I think underrated are your entry-level Ferraris. And I'm talking about across the board. The classic stuff, the newer stuff, the things that the guys who are, a little bit snobbish will sniff at and go, oh, that's not a real Ferrari. They're actually really good cars.
So which ones have you got?
So
examples?
specifically stuff like the Mondial, which everyone hates. Everyone loves to hate a Mondial. It's the same guys who hate the Mondial will tell you the 308's great. And
Just look
underneath
at
they're
it,
the
bro.
same car.
Just look at it.
It's not the prettiest
It doesn't-
Ferrari,
yeah,
I will
but
grant
it's
you
not
that.
bad.
But it's
that
half
bad.
the price of a 308, and it's as good or / bad to drive.
Half of the 308's appeal is looking at it, so it's a bit.
Yeah,
Look,
but
on the topic of the Mondial, I think we spoke about it. I spoke to someone about it. There was a Mondial on auction, and
I remember that.
if you get into a Ferrari, because I think that sold for like 350 or 450 or so, and I thought, even if it is the worst Ferrari there is, you still have a gated manual Ferrari with a V8. How cool would that be?
yeah. And, I mean, I was driving around in a Mondial a couple of weeks ago, and you get the same looks in the Mondial as you do in the 308.
For different reasons, maybe.
Who cares? They're looking.
Can't believe that guy bought one of those.
But it's a really good car. And the other one that I always mention as well is the California. A car that a lot of people hated when it came out because it's not a real Ferrari. It's too slow. It's not.
Well, that's BS. They're not slow. I mean,
No, exactly.
No.
The Cali is a proper Ferrari.
it's a usable Ferrari.
Yeah.
It's
a
something that you can
usable
daily.
Ferrari. It's a daily drivable Ferrari. It's a hell of a lot of fun to drive. It makes all the good noises.
Yeah.
It looks good. Yeah, the back end's maybe a little bit bulbous and not quite as together as some of the other designs. But, I mean, value for money, if I had to choose in that sort of price bracket between a 360 and a Cali,
If it's
don't
something
think-
you want to use, then I mean, there isn't much competition
No.
there, right?
and I think long term, the Cali's going to cost you less to run as well than a
It is,
360
but
would.
it's probably going to depreciate more or not appreciate.
I think the 360 might appreciate a little bit in a couple of years' time.
It's going to be better, but the question is how much,
Not
and
a hell of a
will
lot.
it be eaten up by the maintenance? Probably.
Yeah. And the Cali, I don't think it's going to drop much beyond where it is at the moment. I mean, a decent Cali now is like 1.5, 1.6-ish.
That's a lot of car for the money.
It is.
So, I'm not sure if this is a fact or so, but isn't the Cali's interior built a bit on the cheaper side than the normal Ferraris, or is it
It's
about the same?
not that I've noticed.
Is it?
I mean, some people have said that, but honestly, if you get out of the Cali into an F12, it's different, but the quality
feel
level,
cheap.
the quality level
It's
doesn't
not
feel
like
cheap or anything.
5 million
No.
grand different or whatever.
And I mean, I've driven quite a few Calis. Some of them have been, let's say, less well taken care of than others. And you don't have stuff that just breaks or comes loose or
It's not
anything
fragile.
like. It's not fragile. It's a proper car.
And also, it's a bit more. I mean, the tune is a bit less aggressive. It's not. I mean, the engine's a bit almost. I almost want to say more Maserati-like. It's not being tuned to with an inch of its life.
Yeah.
Not revving to 10,000 RPM. So it should be have some more longevity to it than a mid-engine kind of highly strung Ferrari.
But even the highly strung mid-engine stuff, there's a lot more longevity in them than people give them credit for.
No, sure. I mean, it's just with the Cali, it's even more undertuned.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, if you go and look at mileages in South Africa on Ferraris are ridiculously low. People just don't drive them for whatever reason. But if you go to Europe or America and you go and look at countries where people actually drive their cars, you'll see that the mid-engine Ferraris will easily do 100,000 miles without any problems. And in fact, the ones that do those kind of mileages end up being more reliable than the garage queens.
Yeah, because they work and their fluids get changed and they get their maintenance.
Well, Mark McCann drives this Aventador ST or whatever on his farm. Never washed it since he bought it.
Yeah, well, there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, that's not normal, man.
That's rough. Have you seen his videos on that thing, dude?
No,
it literally looks like someone took mud from the Modderrivier here in South Africa or whatever and just poured it over it, and that's about it.
No, man.
It's bad.
That's just not classy at all.
The people from DDE still said the biggest prank they can pull on him on Campbell is to wash his car. Since he's never watched it.
I would just destroy his entire channel right there.
But it works, so...
No,
well, the Lambo still works since it's been used.
I like having a clean car, and I like washing my car myself. Right. I don't outsource my car cleaning.
I'm gonna half agree with you there. I like having a clean car. I don't like washing.
Yeah, that's because pushing a button to put the roof down is too much work for you. So I can imagine cleaning an entire car is just like, can't manage.
Exactly. Like, who's got time for that?
So yeah, that's me and entry level Ferraris. I enjoy them. I think they're great fun to drive. And you know, if a couple of $100,000 gets you into a Mondial, it's still a Ferrari. You're driving a Ferrari. That heritage comes with the badge. It doesn't matter what model it is. And you know, it's not the prettiest Ferrari, it's not the most popular Ferrari, but it's still a Ferrari, and that DNA is still evident in it when you're driving it.
So, I mean, I do kind of agree that you have to keep driving it then because you can't get out and look at it because it's horrible. But if you're inside, you can't see the outside. So I guess it's okay to drive one.
Well, at least you've got pop-up headlights.
You got pop-up headlights, man.
So, I mean, that's cool.
That's sold right there.
You can buy a Porsche 94 and get that.
Yeah, but you'd actually, like, why would you drive that?
Because you get pop-up headlights and it's cheaper than a Mondial and just as bad looking.
Porsche 94 is an Audi.
Ooh, there's another episode.
It's a fact, though.
All the collaboration.
So yeah, anyway, last car on my underrated list, Toyota 86. People like to hate on the 86 because it's not fast. But
just for clarity, are you saying the old ones and the newer one, the latest one?
I've not driven the latest one, but I don't think there's a hell of a lot of difference between the old one and the new one.
Pitched in the same way. I mean, for the current market, it's kind of sitting in the same place as the old one.
And I think, you know, I owned one for a couple of years, and I absolutely loved that car. It was so much fun to drive, but like the S2000, it has to be driven in context. You can't take an 86 out on the highway and expect it to be a good car.
Yeah.
Because on the highway, it is pants. It is so... It feels under power if you're just going in a straight line. But if you're throwing it around Clarence Drive or Franschhoek Pass and you're dancing with the thing and you're just playing with the chassis and pushing it to its limits, and the limits on that car can be reached at 60 k's an hour, which is fantastic because you can play with it, you can throw it around, you can drift it, you can go absolutely mental with it and not break the speed limit.
It's the old slow car, fast motto.
Yeah, and it's a great car to learn how to control a car because it's very easy and forgiving, and it's a lot of fun.
I also like the recipe, right?
Yeah.
The same as with the 350Z. You know, it's first of all it's Japanese, so it's
reliable.
Well, you know, there's some stories about the original ones because it's more of a Subaru than a Toyota, so it doesn't have. So the engine,
Subaru.
some of the engines had some issues, but I think they sorted that out. But just the kind of ingredients to it. I mean, it's you know, rear wheel drive, manual, you'd get an auto, which is just abomination. Like that
Why?
thing in an auto is just
You would be so dumb.
wrong.
It's the same as the MX-5 in auto. Why would you do that?
There's no point. But I mean, as a manual, it's not overpowered. It's underpowered, like, as we all know, but it's also not overtired, right? So it's got these little small, like it had like Prius wheels, I believe.
Yeah, it's the energy saver, low rolling resistance
which is
tires.
perfect. I mean, that doesn't allow you to reach major G's, so it goes sideways before you can reach those G's, which
Absolutely.
is perfect for fun.
I heard those tires got expensive after a while, though. Even though they were supposed to be cheap to run tires or so.
Wouldn't know. I never had to change tires on mine. But at the end of the day, because it's a fairly common tire size, you can put anything on it.
Yeah.
You can put El Cheapo Sumitomos or whatever on it, and you're not going to ruin the car by doing that. If you put cheap ass tires on a GT3 RS, that's probably not a great idea.
That spoils the car.
Yeah,
Frankly, the worse tires you put on it, the better it's going to be.
You're gonna make that car worse by putting sticky, nice rubber on it.
And that's also, there are so many guys who go out and they go, oh yeah, the 86 is boring unless you do this and this and this to it. Don't modify it, because the power versus handling versus grip that it comes out of the factory with is in such great balance.
Yeah.
The minute you put bigger tires on it,
it's purposefully unbalanced, right?
Yeah,
it was designed to have a little power, but a bit less grip than the power.
Exactly. It's the perfect balance for having fun. And the minute you give it better brakes, then suddenly it feels underpowered. Or you give it more grip, and suddenly you go, oh, well, now I need more power. And then you put more power in, and you go, oh, well, these brakes are crap. So it becomes... The second you change something on it, you have to change everything else.
You almost have to go full bore then.
Yeah.
You either convert it into a serious car, and that means you have to redo the whole thing.
And at the end of the day, are you really going to end up with something that's better than what you started with, or is it only going to be faster? And I don't think it's going to be much better. I think at the end of the day, you'll just end up with a car that's the same but faster.
But if you spend all that money, you may as well buy something that's faster.
Exactly.
And that's already made to do it.
Exactly.
I have to say that limited edition run they did with the RGM supercharger on was pretty nice to drive. I drove that one, and okay, I understand everything you guys are saying, but that supercharger didn't make like 100 more kilowatt or something. I think it took it to 210 kilowatt or so.
Yeah.
Which in that 86 is shifting, but it's not stupidly too much.
They probably gave it a little more grip then as well.
Probably. Yeah,
I don't think you'd want to do that on those
they put
Prius
different tires on it,
Yeah.
And it had different compounds on the brakes. Because I know I took mine on the track and cooked the brakes in like 5 laps.
But that was that RGM one that I drove was that was so much fun. Drove it in the wet. Had to do the pedal dance to put everything off, which I hate. I wish it was just a button, man. I mean, it's a driver's car. Why not just allow us to put everything off? Why program in a pedal dance to put everything off?
I don't know about a pedal dance. Mine had a button.
I've missed the pedal dance.
But the button doesn't put everything. It still keeps stability on.
There's 2 buttons.
No.
There's 2 buttons.
After this, go Google the Toyota 86 pedal dance. I promise you're gonna be.
Well, yours had 2 buttons.
Mine had 2 buttons. One turns off the traction control but keeps stability on. The other one you have to hold in with the other one, and then it turns everything off.
I think they took you for a ride, bro. They made you do the dance.
They just want to see you pushing pedals like a moron. That's what it was.
Please YouTube this after this, though. I'm going to show you guys. Remind me, but I promise you there's a damn
I'm sorry, but you haven't brought the evidence to your argument, therefore it bears no water at all.
It's an elaborate practical joke. They even made a YouTube channel.
They even had bots going and clicking and liking it. But
and then one last thing on it. I don't know if it's that underrated.
It is, because if
the average petrol head
likes it.
The average petrol head is like, oh, it's too slow,
I mean, even Rob, who started Carbs and Coffee, he went and drove one. He hates it. Said it was crap.
Okay.
And a couple of other people
expecting it to be like a fire-breathing rocket, and it's not that.
But I mean, it's a bit like I don't know if you've ever seen the YouTube guy called Super Speeders Rob or something like that.
Yeah.
So at one point or another, he rented a Honda S2000 off Turo, and he complained that the car was crap. And then you go and watch the video.
2,000 horsepower.
No, but you go and watch the video, and where does he drive it? On a massive freaking American interstate highway.
And shifts at 3,000 RPM,
Yeah.
so it's got no torque.
It's like the worst possible scenario for that car to be tested in, and he goes, "Oh no, the car's rubbish." But
Let's enter a fish in a tree climbing competition.
exactly, it's not going to do very well.
Okay.
It would be very entertaining though. I'd like to see
That was something to see.
Anyways, so yeah, that's my underrated list, and now for the overrated stuff. And I think I'm actually going to do this one from the bottom to the top rather than the other way around. But anyway, Audi.
Which one or all of them?
Now here's the thing. Pretty much everything other than an R8.
RS4?
Even the RS4.
The manual RS4s with
The manual
wheel
RS4
arches that could hide cocaine and...
Yeah, but did you buy one or did you buy an M3?
Well, I couldn't afford one of them.
But if you could, what did you buy?
Okay, the M3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean
It's not as good being an M3 as an M3 is.
exactly. The M3 was just, it was better. And when you're buying a car in a performance segment, you want the best one for the job. And
We know it's now the Alpha. It used to be the BMW. Now it's the Giulia Quadrifoglio.
exactly. And at that time, it was the M3. So you bought the M3. And if you were a lunatic who just wanted to smoke your tires, you bought the C63. So the RS4, just in wagon form, very cool.
Yes.
But
Just because it's a wagon.
Well,
Yeah.
That's one thing that Audi does good is wagons.
yeah,
They are big on the fast wagons, which the other folks are a bit
RS6,
slow.
no, their wagons are good.
wagons, that's
I'll
good.
give them that much. But
And I mean,
in general, I think Audis generally are just overrated because for me, you get two kinds of petrol head. You get the guys who love cars and you get the guys who love driving. I fall into the latter category. And an Audi just doesn't have the driving experience that I'm looking for. They're all a little bit grown up and a bit boring.
They're capable, and I think it's if you are going to rain or shine, want something that's a daily that you can reliably and not reliably and safely drive fast. There's not many better options for that.
No,
right?
exactly. And
the Quattro
like
and
I
all
said,
those things.
it's not a bad car. I'm not saying Audis are bad cars. I'm just saying they're overrated
It's just-
as drivers' cars.
You don't feel like a
because they're-
driving guard driving it.
No, I mean, you might feel like a driving god, but you're not, because the car does a lot of the driving for you. And I mean, when I had one of my GTI Golfs that I had, the Golf 5 that we spoke about earlier, I actually took that car to an Audi dealership to go and test drive the RS3. And I came out of it thinking to myself, I actually enjoy my Golf more than the RS3. Because all of the drama and the fun that the front drive GTI has is missing from the RS3. The RS3 is infinitely quicker, and
It's got all the horsepowers, all the grips, all the everything, and
But
it's
it's
just no
just-
challenge to put
exactly.
it down.
I mean, it's just a bit bland. It wasn't fun.
I feel like one car from Audi that is overlooked, with you mentioning the R8, is the TTRS.
But it's a TT.
Yeah, but
It
I
is a
mean, the new
TT,
TT
and-
doesn't
and-
look so hairdressery. It actually looks aggressive. It sounds
And
nice.
if you're talking value for money, the TTRS is the most expensive Golf you can buy.
It is also probably the fastest Golf you can buy.
It is the fastest
And
Golf you can buy.
Those things are off the line. There's very few things that there's some supercars that can't keep up with
Yeah,
those
not a
things.
chance.
Super quick, but it's a DT. I don't know.
Mm.
It just
You know, at the end of the day, at the price point of a TTRS, there's lots of other stuff I'd rather have.
Well, at the price point of
And-
most Audis, there's a lot of other stuff we'd rather have.
Yeah.
Because
I
they basically expensive VWs, and I think we've been mostly
critical of the VWs,
of the VW brand,
especially the newer products.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just
that's
not,
something to say.
like I said, it's not a bad car. It's just not a driver's car.
It's not exciting.
It's not exciting.
The Germans don't have any sense of humor. That's all.
9.
Look, but that being said, I mean, there are cars that are fun, like a C63 AMG, the first ones, the W204, I believe.
Yeah, it was a 204.
So I drove one of those. I almost bought it, like I said, before I found out what the brakes cost to do. Was a lot. But those things, that engine is just it's a muscle car. That I mean, it's not sharp like an M3, or it's probably not as sharp as the RS4 even.
No, it's like trying to do open heart surgery with a sledgehammer.
It is, but that's fun.
Yeah,
I mean, it is.
It's not great for the patient, but you know,
just going. It wasn't. I mean, the handling isn't bad. It's not terrible, but you need to be. You know your way around a throttle pedal.
Yeah, you're not just putting your foot flat.
But it is just that engine and the drama and just putting your foot down. It's like a muscle car. That I actually enjoyed. It's a German muscle car. That's what that is. I don't know about the newer turbo stuff. I haven't driven that. That was the 6.2 liter V8, normally aspirated. That thing was a monster. That's still one of my favorite engines ever.
Yeah.
I have to say, and this is going off topic completely, the C43 with the V6. No, don't pull your face like that. It's actually an awesome motor vehicle. It sounds nice, it's exciting. Yes, it's not rear tire burning because it has the 4MATIC system or so, but as a fun, fast sedan,
but
it's actually
fast
awesome.
AMG is supposed to be a rear drive V8 tire shredder. That's just, it's like a 4-cylinder Mustang, man.
So a 43 is, I'm sure it's capable, right? I'm sure it's quick enough and it does all these things decently, and it's got all the fancy newfangled things inside and whatever. And I don't like the look of any of the new Mercs, to be honest.
Well, I'm not talking like the brand new. I'm talking like the previous, when the first turbo C63s came out, they brought C43s of those out.
Yeah, so the styling on those were okay. But to me, AMG must be a V8, man. Otherwise, maybe a V12. I can forgive it if it's a V12.
Yeah,
the
V12 as well.
But it should actually be a V8. V8 is the sweet spot of that. V6s are now, I mean, don't even get me started on the latest ones.
That's just stupid.
Anyway, but let's get back to Audi.
Where
we started. And I think we can all agree that a R8, like you said, that's the one exception. For me, the new R8s, anything after like the first or second facelift, it's like the Golfs now. It's just like another evolution. Super capable cars, very fast. They sound good, like Lambo
But
powered.
I also think a lot of that stigma comes from the guys who buy them and drive them.
That is true.
It's your forex traders, your Bitcoin billionaires,
and that's going to twin turbocharge it. You take the bump off.
It's going straight from the dealership to Frikkie to put a Pops and Bangs map on it.
And some other wrap or whatever.
Yeah, it's going to be wrapped in chrome
wrap and
or.
But it just doesn't excite me, to be honest. And I know it is basically a Lambo, but I would turn my head and look at a Lambo.
But it's basically
R8.
not a Lambo.
There's a lot of Lambo in there.
There's
right?
a lot of Lambo DNA in there, but it's not a Lambo.
In terms of styling, it just doesn't. The first one to me was such a. It's almost like the Golf 5 GTI was such a new thing. It was such a departure from what there was. Although it's actually closer to the GTI 1 because there was nothing like it. It was like one of the three Germans bringing a supercar or a Heinz sports car, mid-engined. Before that, it was just like tourers. It was GTs and saloons. That was the thing. Germans did fast saloons. That's what they did. Maybe a coupe here and there. That was such a groundbreaking car. And I really love those. I wouldn't mind a manual early V8.
Yes.
I must admit, one of the things I love about the first gen R8 is just the fact that it proved me wrong so badly. Because when the R8 came out, I thought it looks good.
Just another Audi.
But it's just another Audi. It's 4-wheel drive. How much fun could you possibly have with that thing? And then when I actually drove one and I took it on a breakfast run with carbs and coffee, and it wasn't the manual. It was the Artronic, the one that everyone hates, or the one that everyone loves to hate. It was bloody fantastic. It's such a good car to drive. It doesn't feel four-wheel drive at all. It feels like it's rear-driven. The front is just, it just gives that little bit of extra traction when you need it. But man, it's a really good car.
But it does have like a 70-30 or 60-40 split, doesn't it?
I think it's 60-40 or
Something like that,
70-30 or something like that. But yeah.
That first gen R8 is an awesome, I think, value for money if you can maintain it. I don't know how bad the maintenance is on it, but I would love to.
As long as you don't go for the Magna ride, they're not too bad.
Is it?
Yeah. The shocks on the Magna rides are horrendously expensive.
Well,
and the brakes are going to be pricey.
The discs itself.
The brakes on any German performance car that's heavier,
Yes.
the brakes is heavy.
They're going to be expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, that basically is Audi. And then the other one that's possibly a little bit controversial, and a lot of people I know will not agree with me on this one, is non-turbo or non-GT2, GT3 911s. And again, I have to stress that it's not because I don't think they're great cars, because they really are great cars. They're just not the best cars at the price point. I mean, if you go and look at something like a 991 Carrera S right now, you're going to be paying anything from like 1.2 to 1.5, 1.6 bar. And for that kind of money, there are lots of Ferraris I'd rather be having. There are lots of Astons I'd rather be having.
Like what Ferrari would you have for that?
360, for example. I wouldn't daily a 360. If I had to daily drive it, I'd buy the Porsche.
You're not going to cross shop them though. I'm a Ferrari guy, but if it's something that I would drive regularly, I would rather go for the Porsche there.
Which is fair, but I just think that the hype that goes behind the 911, that it's the best car ever and everyone should have a 911, it's rubbish.
In my mind, so shock, kind of honesty. I haven't driven a 911 before.
Same.
I haven't. So I can't have that much of an opinion, other than driving it on a.
So that makes this section very short.
Yeah.
There we go.
Other than driving it on a racing sim, I haven't driven a 901. But to me, it's just they are so, judging by everything I've heard about them and everybody's opinion, they're just such good cars. Like you said, they just do everything well, right?
Yes.
And that kind of makes them a bit too perfect in some senses. And
that's exactly
and the
it.
perfect car, it tends to be boring for me.
That's exactly it. I mean, the thing is, if you're driving around in a Carrera S and you don't look down at the badge to see what you're driving, it could be a Golf.
Sure, that's
I mean,
that's a bold statement.
It's fast and it's capable, but it
sounds better than a Golf.
Okay, maybe a Golf is a bit extreme, but it's just, it
could be a fast VW.
Considering how much money it costs, there are just loads of other cars I would rather buy for that kind of money.
I think quite the opposite is true, to be honest. Like, you can't buy a car that capable and with that much kind of racing heritage that is that capable for similar money.
But you could.
Okay.
There we go. End of discussion. No,
okay, cool.
Look, granted, whatever you buy in that price range that's not a 911 is going to, on paper, technically not be as good as a 911.
Objectively.
But
subjectively, they're going to be more interesting.
But it's going to be more interesting. It's going to be more fun. You're going to fall in love with it more. Whenever we get cars into the showroom, I get to drive them and I get to experience all these different cars. And some of them I genuinely just fall in love with. Like the 355 GTS we had. I absolutely adore that car. I've never driven a 911 and had that experience with it, except for a 997 GT3, which I drove. That was a fun car. That was truly amazing.
GT3 is special. I mean,
but a GT3 is
big money.
Big money. And yeah, the normal sort of run-of-the-mill, if you want to call them that, 911s,
Dailies.
they're dailies. And they're not...
Which could be a, it could be a compliment.
It's a good and a bad
The fact
thing.
that you can drive a serious car like that daily and they will be reliable.
Yeah.
You can put miles on them, etc. So, but that's also what counts against them.
Exactly.
That they are almost too good and polished at the daily stuff that you forget that it's special.
Yeah. I would prefer a car that I can only drive once a month. But when I do, it blows my hair back. Whereas the Porsche is never going to let me down, but it's never going to blow my hair back.
So you don't have that gripe with the Caymans and the Boxsters?
They're
I
much
think
cheaper, eh?
they're much, much cheaper.
Yeah.
And I think if you're looking for a sports car in the sort of 200 grand range, Neil was saying earlier, the 350Z makes a very compelling case for itself. But
So does the Boxster.
the Boxster S is a phenomenal car for 200 grand.
Yeah.
And you can get them with reasonable mileage for 200k.
And they're also actually quite a bit like the Japanese cars. They are quite tough.
Yeah.
I mean, they can take some beating. You can do miles
They
with
can
them.
do. And, there's this whole IMS bearing issue that everyone's always talking about. And I've spoken to guys who work on Porsches. These guys have replaced hundreds of IMS bearings. And you ask them how many of those bearings actually needed replacing? None. They've never come across one that actually needed
But it
replacement.
does warn you, right? I mean, it does. You can check it, and it's not something that just like there's nothing, and then suddenly
the whole
down the
thing
road
blows
the thing
up.
falls apart.
I think there are warning signs, mostly in the form of a small oil leak or whatever, but you really have to know what to look for and check regularly. It's not something that's just going to be immediately obvious. But either way, the number of cars that were actually affected by that issue is so small that it's...
blown way out of proportion.
Yeah,
but it's one of those, I think the likelihood is quite low, but the impact, if it does, is quite severe.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a lotto. If you do win that bad lotto, it's quite...
it's going to suck
damning.
for you. But yeah, it's the old human nature, you don't go on the internet every other day and just go, I drove my car today and it was uneventful. Nothing broke. It was perfectly fine. But something breaks and you're going to be on there, on the forums, you're going to be moaning about it. And that's exactly what happened with the IMS bearings. People were throwing their toys badly when in actual fact the car was faultless for most of its life. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the production run 911s. Then the last one on my list, the GTR.
Without Neil here.
Without Neil here.
That's
Unfortunately, Neil had to leave.
That's not the Merc you're talking about.
Not the Merc, the Nissan GTR.
Godzilla.
Probably more specifically the R35.
R35, the not Skyline, the GTR
The not
only.
Skyline, the GTR only. And I just think they are way overhyped. I respect them hugely for the technical engineering and the capability that car's got. But I find absolutely zero enjoyment in driving one. It's just, because you don't drive it. Like I said earlier, you get guys who love cars and you get guys who love driving. I love driving, and a GTR doesn't allow you to drive it. You tell it where to go and how fast to get there, and it does all the driving for you.
It does some black magic to
Yeah, I mean,
make a heavyweight thing go around a corner.
You point in a direction and tell it the speed to go, and witchcraft happens, and it gets there. It's not a car that you have a relationship with. It's not a car you dance
around
with
with your
No.
fingertips driving.
Exactly, and for me, that completely kills it as a sports car. As a racing car and something that you are...
As a drag car, they are amazing.
As a drag car and a racing car to compete against other things where time and speed is of the essence and you're not worried about driving enjoyment, yes, it makes sense. But as a tool that's supposed to be a fun driving experience, it's pointless.
There's one ingredient there that's missing for me that makes me not like a GTR, and that is lightness.
That's also true.
You
It
can't
needs
get around
lightness.
the weight of it. Yeah.
You know, it's I'm not biased at all. You know, I drive a car that weighs 895 kilograms, so I'm not biased at all. But Skyline GTR weighs twice that. It weighs double what my car weighs. It also means that it needs more than double the power of my car, which it has, by the way. So my car has the same amount of torque going to its wheels than a Skyline does.
Yeah.
The only difference is that goes to 4 wheels and it doesn't have ADHD steering. It's actually, everything's well controlled.
Yeah.
With my car, it's get it wrong and it will bite your head off.
Not just that, but everything in the GTR is very well controlled, as you say, but it's very well controlled by the computer.
Lots of computers.
Not by the driver.
And one thing that shocked me about the GTR is the price of maintaining it.
That is true. I've heard that servicing on those things.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard crazy things. It's a trick thing, a lot like the S2000. Yeah. It's a very trick motor, but this is a lot more complicated. Obviously,
and
more
I mean,
computers.
It's a Nissan. You would think Nissan is not that expensive.
It's not your Datsun 1400 bucky.
No, it's
not an NP200 either. You know.
What someone told me the other day is when you service that, when they take the gearbox off and they need to put it back, they need to actually heat up. They need to heat it up in order for the bolts to line up. It's that it's that highly strung. Yeah. Now, if something is that highly strung, once things starts going wrong, it becomes rough.
You know,
even the oil is expensive.
Having said that, you don't hear much of reliability issues with them if they're kept stock. The ones that bang and go pop are the ones that get, highly modified, and the guys are putting 1,000 horsepower out of them.
Wasn't there big gearbox issues?
I've heard about gearbox issues.
The first ones had a couple of gearbox issues, but I think they were recalled or replaced or repaired under warranty or something along those lines.
I think the point is, it is if you're buying it as I'm not going to buy a Porsche or a Ferrari or an M car or something. I'm going to buy this because it's a Nissan and it's Japanese and therefore it's cheap to run, etc. It's not that.
No.
It's probably more expensive than running a Ferrari or whatever.
Yeah.
My point is that you shouldn't buy it anyway. Because at the end of the day, you're going to buy a sports car because you want to have fun with it. And the GTR is just not fun. Because, like I said, it does everything for you. It's not a driver's car. You're not getting driving enjoyment out of it. That whole thing that we discussed earlier about a car being rewarding to drive, the GTR isn't. Because you know that if you pull it through this corner at this speed on that perfect line, it's not you doing it.
It'll make it work.
The car's
you choose
doing
the line, it'll make it work.
Exactly. Yeah. So, for me, the GTR is just, unfortunately, it's a non-starter, I actually saw a thing on YouTube a couple of years ago where they had a complete novice petrolhead, someone like us, and a professional racing driver. And they were driving a bunch of different cars on the track to see, what the differences in times were. And consistently, after a couple of laps, once the guys got used to the cars they were driving, with all the different cars, there was always a gap of like 4 to 6 seconds between the enthusiast and the professional racing driver. But when they got into the GTR, that gap shrinks down to less than a second because the car makes up for the lack of skill of the driver.
And I've got a hunch that many people who buy them, that's the actual reason they buy them.
Yeah.
Because it makes you look good, like you're a driving god. It makes you look like I'm as fast as a professional driver. And if you're going to do a time attack, like we have this week at Killarney, if you're going to do a time attack, then that's probably a good weapon to have. Because
it's a good car to have.
Even if you're ham-fisted, you can have a decent time. And you can brag in the bar. You can, some barroom bragging, say, oh, I did this and this, that and the other. This was my average speed that the car's computer got for me.
Well, the 2 fastest cars that went up nice now is GTRs.
It's a good base, like you said. If you want to go as fast as possible,
it's a good starting
It's a very good place to start.
Yeah. But if you
want to enjoy it,
want something to enjoy,
a normal person.
And quite frankly, for most of us, our driving is done on the road, not on the track. So you shouldn't be buying a car for racing.
Look, I mean,
because racing has no place on the road.
But on the other
even
hand,
in Mexico.
on the other hand, I mean, that car is very capable, right? So you wouldn't get your. That's probably not true. I always want to say you wouldn't get yourself into that much trouble, but that's just the problem. People think they are driving God, so they trust the computers. They trust the computers until it doesn't. Until it's not enough. And then there's nowhere to go.
The computer can do a lot, but it can't break the laws of physics.
Exactly. And then at some point you're going to be like, oh, the computer, oh no, it's not there. And then it's not phone a friend. Then you're in big trouble.
You're still driving a 200 mile an hour tank that weighs 1.8, 1.6, 1.8 tons.
Somewhere there.
It's not going to let go at 150 k's an hour. It's going to let go at 250 k's an hour. But you thought you going 150 k's an hour.
Absolutely.
But that being said, I'm excited to September. I'm going up to Bloem, and I've got a mate there that has one, and I've never been in one or tried one. So I'm still excited to try it, just to say, okay, I've tried it, whatever.
I think it's a cool thing. I can respect it. I can respect a fast Porsche or whatever. I can respect it for it. There's no way I'll have it over a Ferrari or anything.
Yeah, and you don't want one.
Yeah, it's like I said, I can respect it hugely as a technical exercise. I can completely understand that what it does is incredible, and the fact that it can do what it does is, it's mind-boggling.
From a Super Trumps kind of perspective.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. Look at the numbers.
Absolutely. But from behind the wheel, it just doesn't do anything for me.
Look, if I get the chance to drive one, I'll take it for a spin. I mean,
of course.
I'd like to feel it. Just see what it's like. It's always cool as a petrol head. I mean, I can respect it, so that would be cool.
But it's been really good fun having you guys here. Thanks for coming and joining us. And hopefully this is the first of many.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good fun. Thanks, folks.
We'll see you again in the next one.
Awesome. Thank you, Cube.
Stay classy, San Diego.
Stay classy.
Stay classy, San Diego.
Stay classy, Somerset West.
Mic drop. Poof.